This video is intended to be used in conjunction with the written instructions that came with your product, S&C Instruction Sheet 621-500. Danger: S&C metal-enclosed switchgear operates at high voltage. Failure to observe the precautions below will result in serious personal injury or death. Some of these precautions may differ from company operating procedures and rules. Where a discrepancy exists, follow your company's operating procedures and rules. All assemblies of S&C metal-enclosed switchgear are fastened to wood skids for shipment as individual bays or multi-bay units. Certain items, such as fuse components and current sensors, may be packed separately and, insofar as practicable, are shipped within the enclosure. See the written instructions for information on visible damage upon receipt. The switchgear should preferably be immediately installed in its permanent location. The space heaters, see page 6 of instructions for picture, for outdoor switchgear and indoor switchgear, if so equipped, should be activated at once, even though the switchgear itself may be energized later. This is especially important for bays containing meters and relays, which are particularly susceptible to damage from moisture. See the written instructions for information on storing the switchgear. Because this gear is often located in areas accessible to the general public as well as authorized but unqualified persons, care must be taken to alert such persons to the presence of high voltage within the enclosure. Therefore, do not remove any of the Danger, High Voltage, or Danger, High Voltage, Qualified Persons Only signs attached to the gear. Any organization altering or removing these signs must assume full responsibility for such actions. For more information on safety provisions, see the written instructions. When handling with an overhead hoist, follow these steps to avoid damaging the gear. Step 1. If possible, arrange hoist slings to distribute the lifting forces equally on all eye bolts. Step 2. Do not apply lifting force to any eye bolt at an angle less than 60 degrees from the horizontal. Step 3. If it is not possible to adhere to Step 2, use a certified spreader bar with hooks and lock clips. Step 4. Be sure the eye bolts are screwed down to the shoulder before lifting the gear. Step 5. Avoid sudden starts and stops. It is not necessary to remove the eye bolts after the switchgear has been installed. If the eye bolts are removed, however, the holes must be plugged using galvanized bolts and washers and sealing mastic. Follow these steps to place the switchgear. Step 1. Transport the switchgear to the installation site, observing the handling precautions. Step 2. At the installation site, remove all the separately packaged components shipped within the enclosure and set aside in a protected area. Step 3. Each bay of a multi-bay assembly is identified by a number on the front of the bay. Proper positioning of the switchgear is indicated by corresponding numbers on the anchor bolt plan shown in the CDA-CDT drawing enclosed in the waterproof envelope labeled Installation and Operation Information Kit. On multi-bay assemblies shipped in individual units consisting of bays or groups of bays, the unit whose working clearance will be the most affected by adjacent walls or structures should be placed first. A. Unbolt the unit from its skid and lift it over the anchor bolts, observing the precautions discussed earlier. B. Align the bottom of the bay so it is square with and centered on the anchor bolts. C. When power and control cables will enter the enclosure through trench or conduit in the mounting pad, check these locations for alignment with the terminating facilities provided in the switchgear. If excess lengths of direct buried cable are in place and it is desired to feed them into the bay as the unit is being lowered, the doors must be opened with door holders latched to allow any excess cable to be fed over the door stiles. If the interphase insulating barriers are removed to facilitate this procedure, note their positioning to ensure correct reinstallation. It should not be necessary to remove any end barriers. Step 4. On indoor assemblies furnished with operation drip-proof or dust-proof construction and on outdoor multi-bay assemblies, obtain a weather-tight seal between units by applying the provided adhesive-backed foam gasket tape around exposed edges and roof section between adjoining units. On outdoor switchgear, 2 strips of gasket tape are used at the top of the enclosure. Strips of gasket tape at the top of the roof section should be installed the full depth of the enclosure, with strips at side edges starting below the top strips. Remove any bus opening support straps before applying the gasket. Step 5. Level the bay using metal shims as required. Secure each bay to the pad with the anchor clips provided by tightening the anchor bolt nuts. On multi-bay assemblies, avoid misalignment, which may result in improper operation of the switchgear and ineffective weather sealing between bays. Before installing the switchgear, determine where shimming will be necessary and have the required shims on hand. Make sure the switchgear bay doors open and close without binding. Binding indicates enclosure distortion, which must be corrected by additional shimming. Apply grout at the bottom of the enclosure to prevent entry of rodents, insects, or weeds. On outdoor assemblies, S&C recommends the grouting be recessed sufficiently from the exterior exposure to permit caulking with a weatherproof compound applied with a standard caulking gun. A room temperature vulcanizing (RTV) silicone rubber compound is recommended. On multi-bay assemblies shipped in individual units, align, level, anchor, check door operation, grout and caulk succeeding units in turn, and join units with the half 13-inch galvanized bolts provided. The bolts may be easily pressed through the gasket tape. Do not attempt to draw misaligned units together with the bolts. Step 6. For switchgear rated 4.16 kV or 13.8 kV, on outdoor switchgear, as well as indoor switchgear with optional dustproof or drip-proof construction, after all bays are in place and bolted together, sides and top edges of through bus openings between bays should have the supplied extruded rubber channel gasket installed. A. To facilitate installation of the channel gasket, install and tighten bolts and nuts at the edges of the through bus openings on adjacent bays using the 5/16" hardware provided. B. Stir the special adhesive provided until the color is the same throughout. Cement the channel gasket in place with the adhesive. Apply this adhesive evenly to the 2 sides and top of the bus opening flange in both bays and to all inside surfaces of the channel gasket. After allowing the adhesive to become tacky, where it does not transfer to a knuckle when touched, start the channel gasket at the bottom front corner of the bus opening and, while verifying the gasket is seated completely over the opening flange, install the gasket at the front, top, and back of the bus opening. C. Install the provided gasket support straps at locations along the top of each bus opening. Each end of the strap is to be placed against the nut on a roof attachment bolt and secured in place with a provided 5/16" flat washer and a 5/16" lock nut. On 25 kV and 34.5 kV outdoor and drip-proof designs, after all bays are in place and bolted together, install roof caps over roof flanges between bays and bolt them into place using the hardware furnished. Step 7. Remove all barrier braces and switchblade tie cords installed to restrain movement of these parts during shipping and handling. Note: to ensure adequate electrical clearances, splice plates and hardware must be installed in the manner described and illustrated in the following text and figures. Failure to comply with these instructions may reduce the BIL capability of the switchgear assembly. For switchgear equipped with insulating through bushings, semiconducting grommets must be installed on the bushings before installing splice plates. Failure to install grommets may cause corona discharge between the bus splice plates and the bushings. Steps 8 and 9. The bus construction in S&C custom metal-enclosed switchgear is normally either aluminum or copper. Terminal pads on components may be aluminum, copper, or copper alloy. See the written instructions for information on how to connect different material types. Step 10. Make ground connections from the ground bus, or ground pad on a single bay assembly, to the permanent station of the system ground facility. S&C recommends cable not smaller than 1/0 copper or equivalent be used. And if the maximum momentary rating of the switchgear is to be realized, the equivalent of 500 kc/mil of copper cable is required in either a single or multiple connection. Step 11. If secondary and control wiring are present, all terminals should be checked for tightness. Also, connect secondary and control wiring between adjacent bays at points where shipping splits occur. The individual wires at terminal blocks are marked to correspond with the adjacent terminal block marking. Connection of the secondary and control wiring should be checked with reference to the applicable CDR, QCDR, or CDT wiring diagram included with the Installation and Operation Information Kit. Remove all temporary jumpers connected across the current transformer secondaries and remove all shorting screws from the shorting type terminal blocks. For feeder bays equipped with voltage sensors and type SPD open phase detectors, shorting type terminal blocks are also provided on the left-hand side wall of the high voltage compartment. Store all shorting screws for future use in the holes provided in the terminal blocks. Failure to remove the shorting screws will make every scheme relying on output from the current transformers or voltage sensors inoperative. Step 12. Remove all restraining tape and blocking from the movable elements of the meters and relays, if included, used to prevent movements of these parts during shipment, and check the elements for freedom of movement. Note: relays are not set at the factory, so they must be adjusted to the proper settings. Failure to do so can result in product or property damage. Warning: switch operators and manual operating handles may be equipped with key and/or mechanical interlocks that guard against switch operation when the door of the bay containing the interrupter switch is open. Check the functional operation of mechanically interlocked doors and switch operating mechanisms. Refer to the Interlocks section on page 32 through 35 of the written instructions. Failure to check and adjust interlocks may result in personal injury or death. Key interlocks mounted externally and where the key is retained in the operated position are sometimes shipped separately to prevent key breakage during shipment. Install such interlocks with the bolts provided. The key sequence of the system is indicated on the one-line diagram on the CDA-CDT drawing. Where complex key interlock schemes are furnished, refer to the applicable RD or CDT drawing. Step 13. Fuse components, such as holders, fuse units, end fittings, interrupted modules, etc., are crated separately. Assemble these components following the fusing procedure described in the instruction sheet packed with the applicable fuse components. Install the fuses in the fuse mountings following the procedures described in the S&C instruction sheet about operation that is included with the switchgear for the particular fuse type being used. When installing fuses, make certain complete fuse closure is attained. Store spare refill units, interrupting modules, or fuse units in the container mounted on the inside of the doors to the bays containing fuses or fused voltage transformers. Step 14. Check operation of manually operated switches. Separate instruction sheets on manually operated load break switches are included in the Installation and Operation Information Kit provided with the switchgear. Warning: to avoid personal injury or damage to interlocks, before operating any switches, close and latch the associated door and verify the switch operation is in the sequence dictated by the key or mechanical interlock scheme provided. Before proceeding with these instructions, refer to the interlock section on pages 32 through 35 of the written instructions. If the switchgear is power operated, the switch operators and automatic control equipment may now be checked. Separate instruction sheets for the switch operators and for the source transfer control are included in the Installation and Operation Information Kit provided with the switchgear. Note: if high-voltage AC dielectric tests are to be performed on this switchgear, or if preliminary operational tests using an auxiliary control voltage source are to be performed before the switchgear is energized, special precautionary measures must be taken to prevent damage to certain switchgear components or inadvertent energization of the switchgear main bus. Refer to the Testing section on page 27 of the written instructions. Step 15. After all other connections have been completed and checked, make the medium voltage cable terminations, following the cable terminator manufacturer's instructions. Note: for switchgear equipped with a reverse cable entrance or exit, the medium voltage cable must be installed behind the reverse cable bracket. These brackets are located inside the bay on the left side. Caution tags installed on the brackets are to be removed following installation of the cable. Failure to install the cable behind the bracket may result in reduced BIL rating for the switchgear. Where field-assembled cable terminating devices are used, terminations must incorporate adequate leakage distance between the exposed conductor and the stress relief cone across a surface of non-tracking material, or a surface rendered non-tracking by properly taping with a suitable material. To maintain the rated BIL capability of the switchgear, the following minimum clearances from energized parts, including unshielded portions of cable such as terminator skirts, are required. If necessary, interphase barriers can be removed to facilitate makeup and connection of cable terminations to the switch, fuse, or bus terminals. If the interphase insulating barriers are removed, note their position to ensure correct reinstallation later. Following the user's established system operating safety procedures, check to make certain connection of the incoming power sources to the switchgear terminals is in the proper phase sequence. Note: When making connections, care must be used to avoid placing intentional strain on any switch or fuse terminal. It is important that each cable terminator connector be flat against the corresponding switch or fuse terminal pad with the bolt holes in alignment. Do not use the connecting bolts to pull the cables into alignment. Failure to comply with these precautions may cause misalignment of the switch or fuse. Step 16. Before connecting the cable terminators to the terminal pads, thoroughly wire brush the aluminum contact surfaces to remove any dirt or foreign materials, as well as the natural surface oxides. Immediately coat both contact surfaces to 1/2 inch, 13 millimeters, beyond the joint with a uniform layer of Penetrox A. Note that copper terminals have a thin layer of silver applied to contact surfaces, and the terminal surfaces must be prepared as described in the note on page 16 in Step 9 of the written instructions. Step 17. Connect the cable terminators to the terminal pads. S&C's custom metal-enclosed switchgear can be provided with different material combinations of bus terminal pads and connectors. See page 21 of the written instructions for specific details regarding these steps. Note: torque values apply only to the 1/2 inch hardware described and not to connectors used to secure primary leads of voltage transformers or surge arresters to the bus. After attaching the cable terminals to the terminal pads, to maintain the short circuit rating of the switchgear assembly, secure the cable to the cable support bracket, which is provided in all bays containing fault fighter electronic power fuses and all bays where the available cable space exceeds 24 inches, 61 centimeters for 4.16 kilovolt, 30 inches, 76 centimeters for 13.8 kilovolts, 36 inches, 91 centimeters for 25 kilovolts, or 48 inches, 122 centimeters for 34.5 kilovolts. Under momentary conditions, mechanical stresses caused by unsecured cables may damage switches and fuses. Step 18. Switchgear may be equipped with S&C closed gap current sensors, which can be used with the optional overcurrent lockout feature furnished with the Micro AT source transfer control and with the optional Type ZSD overcurrent relay. These sensors are packed separately along with a supply of plastic tie wraps, connectors, and hardware. The control wire leads to be connected to the current sensors are coiled and taped to the interior side wall of the appropriate enclosure. Make the control wire lead connections and install the current sensors following the procedures in the applicable instruction sheet and with reference to the applicable wiring diagram, all provided in the Installation and Operation Information Kit supplied with the switchgear. Note: for correct functioning of the automatic control equipment, the current sensors must be placed either against the cable concentric neutral ground wires, in which case the ground wires must be brought back through the current sensor before grounding, as shown in Figure 15A on page 23 of the written instructions for S&C closed gap current sensors, or against the cable semiconducting jacket, as shown in Figure 15B on page 23. Also, drain wire type grounds on cable terminators, if present, must be brought back through the current sensor before grounding. Step 19. Install and connect the surge arresters if applicable. Step 20. Strip heaters are included as standard in all S&C metal-enclosed switchgear designed for outdoor installation. They are also optionally available in indoor switchgear to maintain the enclosed apparatus and interior areas free of condensation, which, if allowed to accumulate, can contaminate insulation and promote corrosion. Therefore, when strip heaters are included, make sure they are connected to an adequate power source and energized before placing the switchgear in service. Danger. If the space heaters are wired to be normally served through the secondary windings of voltage transformers located in the switchgear assembly, do not energize the space heaters from a temporary source until the following precautionary measures have been taken. 1. Disconnect the secondary leads or remove the secondary fuses and remove the primary fuses from the voltage transformers. 2. If secondary connections are disconnected, tape the ends of the leads to prevent inadvertent short circuits or contact with the transformer's secondary terminals. 3. Connect the temporary source to the space heaters. These precautionary measures must be taken to avoid energizing, backfeeding, the switchgear conductors at high voltage through the voltage transformers, which could result in serious injury or death. Step 21. If any interphase insulating barriers were removed to facilitate accomplishment of the preceding steps, reinstall them at this time. Take care not to damage barriers on installation and make certain they are installed in the locations from which they were removed. Make sure the clearance between barriers and energized parts conform to the minimum dimensions specified in Step 17 on page 21 of the written instructions. Step 22. Sweep the enclosure floors free of debris. Wipe the barriers, insulators, bushings, terminators, switches, and fuses clean with a suitable mineral spirit solution and dry with a clean, dry cloth. Step 23. Check the functional operation of the key and mechanical interlocks if furnished. Warning: to maintain the integrity of key interlock schemes, duplicate keys must be destroyed or made accessible only to authorized persons. If duplicated keys are made available after installation, it can increase the chances of using the key interlocks when they are not supposed to be used. This can result in unwanted operation, which could result in serious injury or death. Step 24. Remove all shipping tape, bay number labels, and any polyethylene or tape from vents. Remove any remaining adhesive. Wipe down the exterior of the switchgear with a clean, damp cloth and, when thoroughly dry, touch up any scratches and abrasions using the touch-up primer and paint provided, observing the application instructions included on the aerosol cans. Warning: to avoid equipment damage and possible serious personal injury, before walking away, perform the following checks. 1. Check the interior of each bay for foreign materials, tools, etc. that may have been mislaid on high-voltage bus and supporting members. 2. Make certain switch operators, if furnished, are coupled to interrupter switches. 3. Make certain all selector switches on source transfer controls, if furnished, are in the desired positions. 4. Check all fuses to make certain they are fully closed and latched. 5. Close and securely latch all switchgear bay doors. 6. Make certain all interrupter switches are in the correct positions, open or closed, as dictated by electrical system design. 7. Make certain all grounding means have been removed. 8. Padlock all door handles, switch operating handles, and covers. Additional instructions on correct positioning of specific components for normal operation are contained in the S&C instruction sheet for the specific component. Refer to the Installation and Operation Information Kit provided with the switchgear. For information regarding maintenance, see the written instructions. We hope you have found this video informative. If you have any questions, visit our website at snc.com.